Hey Playas, how you doing? Welcome back to Playas Guide. On this episode of Playas Guide, I'm going to be talking about games that were never commercially released for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now, for those of you who are subscribed to the channel, you know I'm a fan of homebrew games and just the NES in general and retro gaming. And for those of you who aren't subscribed, it's free to do so, so please go ahead and subscribe. So many of these games, it's not known why they were unreleased, but if I do know why they were unreleased or have a good idea, I'll let you know in the video. But what's happened is a lot of these games were thought to be lost forever and were unearthed, and the ROMs were dumped and made available. So most of these you can go and find online and download them to your Power Pack or your EverDrive and go play these games right after you're done watching this video. If you want a physical cartridge, there are many reproduction options out there. So the first game that I'm going to talk about is probably one of the most well-known unreleased games on the NES. And if you don't know about this one, then you're probably going to want to go play it because it's bizarre and it's very interesting. And the game is called Bioforce Ape. Bioforce Ape was featured in issue number 27 of Nintendo Power, and I think that's where most people know it from. I hadn't heard of it from any other place. There's a few different unreleased NES games like this that were featured in Nintendo Power and still haven't been released, and people hope they do. A lot of them have, however. The story behind the game, Bioforce Ape, is that you are a monkey who mutates into a giant wrestling ape in order to rescue your family, or the little girl that was stolen from your family at the beginning of the game. You progress through multiple different interesting levels. There's a minecart stage. There's also like some sliding platforms and elevators. The game moves extremely fast, and you get to pull off some pretty cool moves like spinning your enemies around or suplexing them. It's actually a lot of fun to pull these moves off. Now, Bioforce Ape isn't the largest game, but it does have an interesting story. Back in 2005, a user on Digital Press claimed to have found the prototype at a yard sale in Carson, California, and he released some photos of the game on Digital Press. The user ended up releasing several different screenshots, and a bunch of users on the website got really excited about this. And then the user who claimed to have this game released some rather interesting photos. One was a man or a monster made of butter, and it said, "Ja, I'm made of butter, and you are worth 2K monies." And people were starting to think, like, what's going on here? That's really weird, but also kind of hilarious. And then they were arguing about whether it was real or not, and then that same user posted a photo of the smashed prototype cartridge, saying that folks would never find out. So in March 2010, there were a few users from Digital Press and different video game preservationists who got together and purchased the legitimate prototype of Bioforce Ape when it came up for auction on the internet, and they ended up dumping the game. California Raisins was based off of an 80s claymation, and there also was an animated cartoon for the series. They were pretty popular for a while, selling some different toys and stuff. However, when the 90s came around, Capcom planned to release a Nintendo game for the California Raisins. Now, this game possibly got dumped due to the lack in popularity of the California Raisins franchise in the early 90s. It was mostly dead. So I don't think it got released because of that. But the game seems to be pretty much a complete game. It does seem like it could use a few touches here and there, but it's not buggy or anything. California Raisins, the Grape Escape, is a pretty decent platformer. Buzzin' Waldrog. Here's another unreleased game. From what I can gather, it was released in Korea, I'm not 100% sure on that, so if you have more information about that, please share it in the comments below. The game originally was called Coco's Adventure, or Coco and Susie, but they ended up changing Susie to a male character named Waldrog and called the game Buzz and Waldrog. This is a platforming game. Your attack is kind of weird, and you do like this spinning thing that takes a little bit of time to get used to. But once you get the hang of it and you get going in the game, it is a lot of fun. But I would say there is a little bit of a learning curve, just kind of getting used to the attacks and what you need to do in the stages. So when you're going through the stages, you want to collect keys. Once you've collected all of the keys, you could then exit the stage. Some of the keys are hidden in different areas, but you really shouldn't have too much trouble finding these areas. Waldrog is a multiplayer game, so you can play with a friend, but you do take turns. And if you prefer one character over the other, you could play as either character. Crossfire. Crossfire is a run and gun, but it's at a much slower pace than, say, Contra. It also has a health bar, so it's not a one-hit death. However, there is sometimes just a hail of gunfire that would sometimes seem impossible to dodge. You can do it, but it does get a bit hairy at times. And the enemies in this game also take multiple shots. Some of the soldiers only take one, but it definitely could start off difficult because you don't have a gun. You're just using your fists. You gotta find a gun, and then you could use the gun. There's also enemies in the foreground and the background attacking you, so you have to shoot up or back at them or throw a grenade back. So Crossfire was released for the Famicom, and there was a port on the Genesis. However, we never got the Nintendo Entertainment System version. The game seems to be a complete game. I'm not sure why it was unreleased. Possibly because of the themes of drug and violence and traveling around the world, taking down drug cartel. Maybe didn't sit well with Nintendo of America. Anyways, this game got canceled last second, it looks like, because there was a Genesis port and because it was released on the Famicom. We almost got it. In fact, I did get it. I was lucky enough to picked up a prototype of this game on eBay for much lower than you would ever expect to find an unreleased prototype. Now, this game is dumped, so you could go out there and play it today if you'd like. I wasn't the one to dump it, unfortunately. I would have loved to have had that privilege to share a new game with the world. Time Diver Eon Man. This game is a lot of fun. It was never released. Taito made it. I'm not sure why they didn't release it. The game is complete. It was even featured in Nintendo Power issue 45 and had a 4-page strategy guide. So it looked like they were going to release this game, and for whatever they just didn't. It's unknown why. It's possibly because maybe they were going to be competing with one of their other bigger releases that were going to come out around that time. I think the year was 1993. But who knows, really. Originally, this game was supposed to be the sequel to Wrath of the Black Manta. But as you could clearly tell by the gameplay here, it's not. You're a time-traveling cop going back and forth in time to rescue your ancestors. There's a lot of fun platforming in this game. If you're a fan of games like Power Blade or Shatterhand, you might like this one too. It's not quite as good as those games, but it is a very good game. In fact, all of the games on this list are better than a lot of games that did get released. And that's why I made this list, so that if you're unfamiliar with some of these games, now you have a good idea what they're about, and you could go check them out. If you have, like I said, if you have a Power Pack or an EverDrive, you can get the ROMs for free online. And if you're looking for a reproduction, reproductions are out there, so you could add these games on a physical cartridge to your collection. So there you have more interesting games that are not part of the North American retail licensed NES library that are out there, and they're fun to play. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your mom, share it with your dad, and let them know about these cool games that are out there that never got released. That's it for this episode of Playas Guide. Later, Playas.